I can't get people to turn on their cameras. That complaint came up in a workshop I took recently from Collaboration Superpowers, Lisette Sutherland's wonderful workshop on how to make virtual meetings work better. The person doing the complaining was concerned because she could not see her colleagues on the other side of the screen. Hello everybody, I'm Mike Friedenberg from Mastering Online Meetings. That complaint raised an interesting discussion and an interesting question. Should we require that cameras be turned on in our virtual meetings? The answer turned out to be not straightforward. Stick around, that's what we're going to talk about. Meeting participants leaving their cameras off is common these days, but the answer to the question, should we require that cameras be left on, is a little bit more challenging to answer. To start answering that question for yourself, begin by considering what are some of the advantages. The first advantage is the obvious. You can see what's going on the other side of the screen. That gives you an edge in reading nonverbal communication cues so you can react to them. Another advantage is that leaving cameras on does tend to improve engagement and attention. After all, if your camera is left on, your peers can see what you're doing. That tends to improve people's participation and them staying attentive during the meeting. There are understandable reasons why people turn off their cameras in virtual meetings. Research shows that one of the biggest complaints is, behind a camera that's turned off, people are multitasking. There could be some logical reasons why that's occurring. First, it could be meeting participants don't find the meeting very interesting. Another reason could be they're not sure what their role is. They're not sure what they're supposed to contribute. And another reason could be simple fatigue. We're all going to a lot more meetings these days, and people are just worn out attending meetings that don't have a lot of engagement. It's good to pause here and consider, how do we want people attending our virtual meetings to feel? Do we want them to feel supported? Do we want them to feel autonomous? Do we want them to feel they have discretionary choice? Those are kinds of value questions that you might want to think about as you're considering whether or not to have a cameras on policy. If cameras on is the policy you need, you've got some options. But first, stop and consider, one size does not fit all. You're wise to talk to your team members or survey them and find out what are the different reasons they have for turning their cameras off. With that information, you're in a much better position to design a policy that will work for everybody. Having said that, however, if your decision is to have cameras on, here's 4 things you can do to encourage that behavior. First is to have the team members talk with one another and establish peer-to-peer expectations. That's essentially a negotiation about cameras on, cameras off, or under what circumstances they will be on or off. A second thing you can do is reduce the amount of time spent in meetings. You can shorten the sessions, you can add more breaks in a session, or you can take long meetings and break them up into several shorter meetings. A third thing you can do is beat the background distractions. If people on your team are concerned about what's going on in the background of their virtual meeting space, talk about it. Have them talk over and negotiate what is an acceptable way to manage that. Now you're going to find that there's 2 schools of thought. There are some people who believe obscuring the background is a good thing to do and a sign of professionalism. The other school of thought is that you don't need to do that. We need to accept the reality of virtual meetings carrying with it that kind of background activity. So it's just accepted. The tweak that is important to me is whether or not my meeting is public facing or not. If I'm facilitating a meeting and I'm encouraging people whether or not to have their cameras on, and I know the meeting is going to be viewed by a lot of members of the public or a board of directors or people in a political organization, then I am a fan of obscuring the background. So you have to make a decision for yourself, but the entry point is get your team members to talk it over and decide what's right for them. And the 4th thing you can do is an obvious tip. Design better meetings. Good meeting design promotes good meeting behaviors. Passive meeting design promotes passive behaviors. Meetings that encourage cameras on provide creative thinking opportunities, discussion that's vigorous, debate that is open and encourages point-counterpoint discussions, lots of rich, deep information sharing, real-world problem-solving opportunities, and an opportunity for active decision-making by the end of the meeting. And a bonus thing you can do is set an example. It's going to require patience because people turning their cameras on is going to be a change from probably their typical behavior at this moment. So you're going to need to show the value of cameras on. You're also going to need to role model that behavior, and then you're going to need to follow that up by starting to ask people to turn their cameras on. After time, however, it may become the new norm that cameras will be on as a matter of course, and people will turn them off only when they have a very good reason. I hope I've given you a few ideas to think about and some tips to try. The correct answer to the question, should cameras be turned on or turned off, is, it depends. A good way to begin is to have that conversation with your team. Let them negotiate a camera culture that simultaneously meets their unique needs and promotes teamwork. Well, thanks a lot for watching. If you did like this video, be sure to hit the like button. And if you want more tips on how to master online meetings, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.